together, and Prost didn't, and this may be the difference between the two. But in the meantime, this is a golden opportunity for Niki Lauda to put himself on top of the championship, and I think that Niki will desperately want the 9 points and won't be too thrilled with sitting behind Piquet for 6. So he's now got the second half of the race to get stuck in hard on Nelson Piquet, who will be very difficult to pass because the Brabham is very quick in the straight line.
But just look at the way that Nelson Piquet is being reeled in by Niki Lauda. I think he is going to pass him, and very soon too. This is lap 31 in this 51-lap race, and if Lauda gets past Nelson Piquet, which seems highly likely, the enormous Austrian crowd will positively erupt, because Niki Lauda, for all his success, has never won his home Grand Prix, and he's right with Nelson Piquet. I can hear the crowd roaring in the background as Lauda on lap 32 comes right up almost to the gearbox of Nelson Piquet's Brabham BMW and is within striking distance of challenging the Brazilian world champion for the lead.
That looks like Nigel Mansell pulling up to par.
And while you watch this, there's an equally dramatic battle, and you'll never get the Austrian producer to move away from this, and I understand it. But there's an equally dramatic battle going on for third place, which is now held as Piquet laps the 7th place man, Teo Fabi. Third position is now held by Patrick Tambay, who has passed Senna. Out of 5th place has gone Nigel Mansell. Up to 5th position has gone Michele Alboreto. Up to 6th place has gone Teo Fabi now, who has just been lapped. And now Lauda is actually closer at this point to Nelson Piquet than he has been at any time in the race, although Piquet pulls away a bit as they go into the Bosch curve. Senna is into the pits, and here he is. Senna into the pits now. Is it just a straightforward tyre change? He's on Michelin. Brakes on, it says, and that is to enable the rear wheels to be stopped turning so that the mechanic can make sure to get them off the uprights and hubs and get the new wheel and tyre on cleanly. So, Senna into the pits. If Nelson Piquet wins this Grand Prix, he will be on 27 points, and with Elio De Angelis out of the race, with René Arnoux not in the first 6, and with Derek Warwick out of the race, that would automatically lift Nelson Piquet up to 3rd place in the championship, which is as it should be, because the top 3 drivers of 1984 are without doubt Piquet, Lauda, there they are, and Prost, who is out of the race. And now we are going to see how Michele Alboreto in the V6 turbocharged Ferrari copes with the threat to being lapped from Nelson Piquet there, going into the Glacks curve with Niki Lauda behind him on lap 39 with 12 laps to go then. And it's getting very... Now this could be where the lead might change, because Piquet has got to concentrate partly on getting past Alboreto and partly keeping Lauda behind him.
I think he's going to catch him now in the Bosch curve. It's a question of whether he catches enough to be slowed down. Not quite. Lauda, I'm sure, would like Alboreto to stay there till the end of this lap so that he can hold, with a bit of luck, hold Piquet up round the Jochen Rindt curve where the oil is, and maybe get a run up to the chicane, which is where Lauda has looked strongest on the circuit. He's got closest to Piquet every time going under braking to the chicane, and he looks very confident there, so he wants Alboreto to stick on the line and not let them through for this corner. And he's where he wants to be as regards Nelson, and he's very much where he wants to be. He's got through the corner beauty, that's the closest he's been, and I think if he can stay in the tow, Niki is going to have a big go to outbrake Nelson into the chicane. Nelson's coming over the tight line, Niki's having a look both sides. Oh, it's all a terrible mess.
Well, Alboreto is in 4th position now, behind the 3rd place man, who is Patrick Tambay, that we haven't seen for a long time, and Lauda leads. Niki Lauda takes the lead in the Austrian, his home Grand Prix, on lap 40 out of 51, and he's on his way.
Piquet, it looked, was trying to get up the inside of Alboreto, and that must have slowed him right down, because Nicky got the run on him coming out of the chicane and actually passed him on the straight. But that's looked very much the end for Nelson Piquet as far as winning this race is concerned. Now, there we see Nicky going out of the chicane with Piquet in front of him. Now, I think, yes, now Piquet was snaking like mad then. I think he's made contact with Alboreto, and he may have a slow puncture or something, because he snaked just then going away.
Well, either way, Niki Lauda leads now. Here is Lauda passing Piquet on the replay, of course, and as you can see, Michele Alboreto, who Piquet was right with, has got well clear. So at that point, Nelson Piquet was in trouble, and it seems to me that James' hypothesis is that obviously the right one, that there was a contact between the Brabham and the Ferrari, and now the new leader, Niki Lauda, has got a rather easier problem in taking Michele Alboreto, because he hasn't got pressure from somebody else as Nelson Piquet had, and he's going to do it as they go up into the Hellenic curve. He goes smoothly through on braking to lap the man who is now in fourth position, Michele Alboreto.
And that Niki Lauda slowing down, he's got an arm went up then, so that means that Lauda is in trouble of some sort, it looks like. Now let's just keep an eye on him, because this will be very dramatic if Lauda's in trouble. We've got Piquet going very slowly. When they went past the start-finish line, then he was 7 seconds behind Lauda, obviously limping, but he looks like a man who's out there trying to limp all the way to the line. So we'll just have to see how he gets on, because they still had the oil flag out on the, and that may be because of Tambay. He went past smoking, yes, and I see a line of oil going up the side of the track there. In fact, that's why they're coming over to the other side of the track and then coming back. And whether Tambay laid an oil slick around the chicane or not, I can't see one there, but I could see it on the straight. So that was, yes, and there's a bit of oil there. And there is Tambay looking as if he's about to stop and park, or is he going to save himself a walk, a la De Angelis?
Well, we'll know after the race, and I suspect not before, whether there is anything wrong with the cars of Lauda and Piquet. I've got a sneaking feeling that there is, because you see Palmer is now closing right up with Lauda, and I suspect grappling with his conscience about whether he ought to have the temerity to pass Lauda. Well, if he did grapple, he didn't grapple for very long, because Palmer has unlapped himself. So either, there's Piquet, so either Niki Lauda, now on lap 47, is being quite incredibly cool and relaxed, as Nelson Piquet has been on many occasions in the past, or the great Austrian has got a problem. Now, in that case, there he is, still with Jonathan Palmer. Is Lauda's problem as great as that of Nelson Piquet? The gap is now increasing between Lauda and Piquet. It's up to 13.5 seconds, and Lauda is coming through to complete his 49th lap and start his 50th and last but one very shortly. So Niki can really afford to stay where he is. There is Piquet in second position. Niki Lauda, world champion in 1975, world champion in 1977, second in the World Championship in 1976 to James Hunt, in spite of having that dreadful crash at the Nürburgring in his Ferrari. Possibly, indeed probably, world champion in 1984, an amazing record. And he's now starting his 51st and last lap. Niki Lauda into the Hellenic Benz. James.
Well, marvellous result for Niki. He really deserved the race. He was the quickest man on the circuit throughout, so it's a rightful winner. It's a pity that he and Piquet both seemed to run into some sort of minor mechanical trouble towards the end of the race, and the battle was unable to continue. And of course the big story is that Alain Prost would appear to have blown it again. He had his chance. He was the one who flew off on the oil, but Piquet was the first to arrive on it, which is always the most difficult. He handled it with a bit of a slither, and Lauda got round. So Alain Prost, once again, for the third time in 2 seasons, is doing his best to kill his World Championship chances. Of course, he's by no means out of it, but he hasn't half given himself a setback today.
Niki Lauda almost home magnificently to win his 23rd Grand Prix. His first ever Austrian Grand Prix. The crowd will justifiably go wild. Niki Lauda crosses the line, raises his hand, wins the Austrian Grand Prix, takes the lead in the World Championship, increases the McLaren massive lead in the Constructors' World Championship, and in second place will be Nelson Piquet. Victory then in the Austrian Grand Prix for the great Niki Lauda, who, as we guessed, had actually lost 4th gear in the race, and that was what slowed him, but it didn't prevent him from winning. And in second position was Nelson Piquet, 3rd Michele Alboreto, 4th Theo Fabi, 5th Thierry Boutsen, 6th Mark Surer, and that means that BMW engines were in 4 of the top 6 cars. Niki Lauda now leads the World Championship by 4.5 points from Alain Prost. In third position, Elio De Angelis, just ahead of René Arnoux, who is just ahead of the 5th place man Nelson Piquet, who is only 1 point ahead of Derek Warwick in 6th position. But in the Constructors' Championship, McLaren have maintained their enormous advantage over 2nd place Ferrari, with Lotus in 3rd position, Renault in 4th place, and Brabham in 5th position.
Niki, that looked a bit close. We saw you throw your hand up in the air. What happened? It looks as if you were out of the race.
Yeah, it made a big bang, and I lost my 4th gear, or I lost the gearbox, and I thought everything is broken. So I raised my hand, and I thought I have to stop. But then I was looking for other gears, and I could find the 2nd and 3rd and 5th. And so I tried to run home with 2nd, 3rd and 5th only, which finally worked out, thank God.
And of course, Piquet was in trouble as well.
Yeah, he had some tire problems, what I understood.
So you've won here in Austria after all those years, your home Grand Prix. Is that important, or is the 9 points more important?
I mean, it's nice to win the Austrian Grand Prix as an Austrian, but it's more important than 9 points, I can tell you this.
So you lead the World Championship now. What are your thoughts going through your head, Niki?
Just go home and relax. This is the first thing I'm thinking in the moment, because next week is the next race coming up, and I want to be fit for that one.
Watch all 6 Sky Sports channels on your mobile and online.
Sure Advanced Protection offers you double the protection at 72 hours, outlasting the leading antiperspirant and giving you the confidence you need to take on every challenge. Our best ever protection in an aerosol. Sure Advanced Protection. It won't let you down.
We can't make dieting any easier, but we can straighten your teeth 3 times sooner than traditional braces. Go from this to this, or this to this. Join over 1 million smilers and counting. No braces, no monthly practice visits, no paying a fortune. Book your free visit at smiledirect.club.co.uk.
You can check your eligibility for an Aqua credit card without affecting your credit score. We say yes to over 4,000 people every week, even when other lenders may have said no. And we could say yes to you too. That's because at Aqua, we know you're more than your credit score. If you're ready to build better credit, why not start today? Check your eligibility at aquacard.co.uk. Representative 37.9% APR variable.
Paddy Power love bingo! That's why every 20 seconds we make someone a winner. Now let's play bingo Paddy Power style. How about number 4, Wags at War? Number 30, dance partners getting flirty. 5 and 4, tied once more. But we wouldn't change everything. 22, 2 little ducks. Classic. Someone wins every 20 seconds. Paddy Power bingo.
The workout app tracks all my workouts. It knows how many laps I've done, how many calories I've burned. It knows how far I've gone, even in open water.
Nothing beats the open road, but a new set of wheels doesn't come cheap. Luckily, a TSB loan can make it easier. That thing is really loud. You can even take a repayment holiday if you need one, which is handy if you ever hit an unexpected bump in the road. That should do it.
Changed the wrong tyre.
I changed the wrong tire. So whether you're gliding through Gloucester...
It's Gloucester.
...or having a pit stop in Pontryfendigheid.
It's Pontryfendigheid.
A TSB loan helps keep things moving, because that's life made more. That's my van, isn't it? Yeah, there goes my van.
This March, discover the visual artists who ripped up the rulebook and redefined art as we know it.
Let's go.
I'm frustrated by many things. I didn't become a graffiti artist so I could have other people tell me what to do.
There was no way how I could see the thief in this guy.
Every sculpture must be touched. Our first sensibility is the sense of feeling.
I'm going to take you on a journey revealing the artist's views, inspirations and secrets.
Including the series finale of Landscape Artist of the Year.
It's time for the final.
Immerse yourself in the very best visual arts. This March on Sky Arts.
The World Championship record is equalled. Lewis Hamilton is a 7-time champion of the world.
That's for all the kids out there who dream the impossible.
It's third time lucky for Alex Albon. He is in the top 3 in Formula 1.
Are you walking taller today? Are you feeling more of a big man in this sport because you finally got what you deserve and you've been on the podium?
It's still the same. Still the same. It was a good race. It's just nice to get that podium on the board, and obviously we had a few chances before, but to do it this way as well. It was a hard-earned one. It wasn't one of the easy ones, so it was nice to get it for the team, but also for myself.
Take us through the move around the outside on Daniel Ricciardo, because of all the moves you've pulled off, that would be one of the more satisfying ones?
It was actually, there was a move on Perez earlier in that, you could call it the third race. That was my best move of the build-up before overtaking Daniel. But both of them were around the outside.
He's going to go the long way round San Donato. Lovely move from the Red Bull driver.
He brakes late. He always brakes late, and he doesn't give his positions very easily. So, yeah, it was good to get the move done.
It's just little things like that, as part of any driver's progression. You can take it, put it into a little box that you've ticked off. It must give you more confidence going forward.
Yes, I mean the race pace, the racecraft has been pretty strong this year for me. I felt like I've been able to do some moves, get them to stick, and I'm not afraid of the wheel-to-wheel combat. But yeah, it's been good. It's been fun. I've obviously had to start a little bit further back than I would have liked. So you could say I've been able to hone my racecraft a bit more. But it's been going really well. And as I said, the races have been fun, and the race pace has been good, and Saturdays are getting better now. So with that in mind, as I said, I'd rather do less of the moves and more of the boring stuff.
Well done, Alex. A really, really well-deserved podium. Well done.
Well, yeah, thank you, everyone. Thanks for everything. Thanks for sticking with me.
Your message on the radio, it just seemed like such a nice thing to say. How do you feel the team have stuck by you? What prompted you to say that?
Well, I heard it back. I thought, oh God, it's like I've said, thanks for not getting rid of me, kind of thing. But it wasn't like that. It's more just thanks for supporting me since day one. I felt like, media talk, everyone talks, but the team have always been with me, and with that, it just felt, it was more like this is for you guys, and this is what I can do, and hopefully plenty of more to come.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot of hours to fill when we talk as media types. We were talking about your teammates' comments, Max's comments about, I don't care who my teammate is, I'm going to beat them anyway. Is he really that tough behind the scenes?
To be honest, working with him one-on-one, he's a really straight guy. I know there's a lot of drivers who create politics within a team, but Max isn't one of them, and we get on well. We have similar feedback, and yeah, it's nice to have someone like him to be racing against.
Well, it's nice to have someone like me to race against, and that's what you're going to have today. We're going to go racing.
I'm not sure about that.
Ice cream vans. Well, yeah, the pressure is not on me today. It is all on you, because you're the professional racing driver. But it's nice to have a bit of fun. I've no idea how these things are going to handle.
They look top-heavy. They look really top-heavy, and I'm a little bit worried.
Working so hard at the wheel. This is good, Croft. We can do this.
Can you buy a used car online and have it delivered to your door at a time that suits you? Cazoo, yeah you can.
Skip ordinary.
Skip complicated. Take us home. Skip boring. The exciting new Tiguan.
Charles Leclerc is the winner of the 2019 Italian Grand Prix. Pure sporting joy and emotion. Charles Leclerc, King of Monza. Here we go! Brilliant move! Nice spin! How was that fast? Wheel to wheel!
Enough space.
He's crashed!
Utter madness.
It's lights out, and away we go!
Well, welcome back to day one of pre-season testing. We're about to get underway in the second session of the day here at the Sakhir Circuit in Bahrain. Just 3 days of pre-season testing this year. The chance for the teams to get the cars ready for the first race back here in 12 days' time. It was a busy old morning out on track. But the thing that is getting our attention right now, as Karun Chandok joins me here on the roof, are the conditions, Karun. I'm really glad I brushed my hair in the lunch break, because that was worth it.
Even my Lego hair is moving around. So, but the biggest problem, Rach, is in the distance. If you see, the visibility is significantly worse than it was when we started today. As we know, this could become an issue for the medical helicopter, if it gets worse as the afternoon progresses. Fingers crossed it passes through, and the session can carry on as per normal, but we will have to keep an eye on this.
In that session, though, that we did have earlier on today, the big talking point, obviously, is Mercedes and their issues. They managed to get Valtteri out for 16 laps in all. Lewis takes over the car this afternoon, but that's a big loss of time for them.
A big loss of time for Valtteri as well, but listen, they're a big team. They've got a lot of resources, a lot of people back at base who can investigate the issue. They'll probably simulate the issue, actually, back on the gearbox dyno. But it's a dent. They've lost 1/6 of their running, which is not ideal for any of the teams.
What did you notice when you went out trackside earlier on when you were watching the cars?
I noticed how tricky it is in the wind. When you look at the way they have to turn through the crosswinds, particularly the middle sector of the lap, you can see a lot of drivers having moments when they get that gust of wind hitting them. So I think it is tricky conditions for the drivers. It's tricky conditions for the engineers to gauge just where the performance of their car is. And that is going to give them a few headaches as we head towards the race weekend, because they won't know exactly what the baseline of the car is. That's what this test is all about. Establishing the baseline, understanding what they've got underneath them. And if they don't have a clear reading of that, that's better for us watching, to be honest, because it means we go into that first race with more unknowns.
Charles Leclerc had a stoppage on track just before the lunch break as well. We don't know the cause of that yet.
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously, but it's testing. You know, this is where we expect to see cars breaking down and stopping. It's nothing new. You know, as long as they understand what happened and they can fix it, then they'll solve it.
Likewise for Haas and Mick Schumacher, only 15 laps for him. Good to see the MSC, though, on the timing board, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's nice to have a Schumacher back on track, but, you know, all of that's, it's gone now. You know, now it's about on-track performance. And that, to me, his issue is a bigger problem than the one that Mercedes and Lewis had, because, you know, Mick's a rookie. He needs laps, he needs mileage. Haas aren't a team as big as Mercedes with the simulation software and, you know, tools back at base to simulate things. So they need to be running on track. So for them, I think it's a bigger blow.
OK, we've got some driver changes for you this afternoon. Lewis Hamilton, as we said, is in the Mercedes. Lando Norris, Lance Stroll, Carlos Sainz, Yuki Tsunoda, Antonio Giovinazzi and Nikita Mazepin all get their first run-outs in this second session. Let's join our commentators for this then. In commentary, it's Jolyon Palmer and Alex Jakes.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Hello, everyone, from a very windy, dusty, sandy Bahrain International, where we are 1 minute away from a green light at the end of the pit lane. But how much track action will we get? That is the question. 4 hours ahead of us then for this second session of the day. A reminder, if you're new to testing, unlimited running unless we get a red flag out there. Jolyon Palmer, what did you make of the running that we saw earlier on, when it was, well, we thought at the time it was poor track conditions then, and now we've got this?
Yeah, I've just walked through a blizzard to get to this commentary box, so it's really shocking. I mean, you can see from that view, it's a sunny day, you know? It's a sunny day, but that's just sand that's just been blown across, and suddenly the conditions are awful. So, well, what do we learn? Mercedes had a difficult time, obviously being stuck in the garage with that gearbox issue there on the back foot. I think Red Bull looked all right, even though Verstappen had that half spin. They've got some mileage in, and then McLaren as well, and Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri.
Yeah, a lot of talk of the AlphaTauri, and if you peer through the sand, you can just about see the green light. But unlike earlier on, not exactly a flurry of cars desperate to take to the track in the conditions. I honestly thought when we were going to be doing testing in Bahrain, at least we won't have to fill any empty track. And it's my own fault for thinking it, for comforting myself with the idea that that was going to be possible. Sandstorm, day one. And, well, it means that we're slightly delayed, even though we've got a green light at the end of the pit lane.
Yeah, you got carried away, didn't you? Barcelona testing. I have to say, it's a good overall testing venue. That's why we go there so often. But you do get the really cold mornings. You get the occasional bit of rain. We've had snow before at Barcelona. And you think, coming to Bahrain, you're going to have a nice, sunny 3 days. Loads of runoff as well. At Barcelona, you see some cars stuck in the gravel. Provides us a bit of action. But we've had a few offs as well this morning. But nice bit of runoff on the exit of turn 10. Verstappen as well, his spin through turn 2. But they get away with it a bit more. So it's a great testing venue until there's high winds in a desert and the sand gets blown across. So it's horrendous conditions for Formula One cars right now. I mean, the wind on its own, it's so difficult. We've spoken so many times over the years of the wind affecting these cars that are so reliant on optimal downforce, basically, from a relatively static air position. But you've got the wind and the sand to make the track itself slippery. It's also quite hot, so the tyres are going to be overheating, sliding around and everything. It's a difficult time.
As that shot will show you. Track temperature is 38 degrees, air temperature 35. But it is roasting out there with the cover of the cloud. As Jolyon pointed out, it's actually been a really lovely day up until the point that the sand has moved in. No one out on track at the moment. but the green light is there. So just to tell you the changes that we're going to have, no change to the Mercedes run plan, despite all the time that Valtteri Bottas lost. And it's Hamilton in the car this afternoon. Verstappen is continuing in the Red Bull. Then it's Lando Norris in the McLaren. Then it's Lance Stroll getting his another run in the Aston Martin. Esteban Ocon, there you can see him on your screen at the moment, will be continuing. And then we've got Carlos Sainz in for Ferrari. Yuki Tsunoda, you saw a glimpse of him in the garage there, will be running for AlphaTauri, who looks strong out of the box. Then it's Antonio Giovinazzi in the afternoon session Alpha, and Nikita Mazepin will be taken to the track in the Haas. Roy Nissany continues his day behind the wheel of the Williams, and you can join the conversation by using the hashtag F1 testing. If you've got a question for Mr. Palmer, I'm sure he'll be delighted to answer it, or at very least contractually obliged.
Delighted.
There we go. We'll go with option 1.
This is exciting. It's the start of a new year, even though we've got a green flag in pre-season testing and no one's really urgent to get out there. But looks like Ocon's going to get on with it in the Alpine. The conditions are so awful, but there's 3 days of testing. You can't sit around and wait for the weather to clear up, because the wind's going to stay as well into tomorrow, even if it will turn 180 degrees and go in the other way. It's one of those things where the conditions are bad, but you know, they need to get the mileage in. They need to work these cars a bit and see where they're at.
So just looking in at the crash helmet for Fernando Alonso, running tomorrow after his lucky escape after the cycling accident that he had. And that is the reason that we have an empty racetrack at the moment. Earlier on, we had the fastest time set by Daniel Ricciardo in what looked like a compliant McLaren at this very, very early stage. Worth saying, the standard disclaimer that all the times that we read out, they're gonna drop a lot as we go through the days running, and we don't know what fuel loads they're running, we don't know what plan they're on, but either way, we're going to tell you the times, because if we don't tell you the times, we're running out of stuff to commentate on during testing. Nikita Mazepin in the Haas, the multiple race winner from Formula 2 last year, in the car with that distinctive livery that they've changed from last year to this year. But as we were hearing earlier in the morning, not as many updates that we have had elsewhere compared to the rest of the grid.
No tokens used for Haas. It's looking like a really tough year ahead. This is only day one morning, but they've got 2 rookies in the car. We've had Mick Schumacher do 15 laps only this morning after a gearbox change for the team. There's not been a lot of development on the car already. Günther Steiner said pre-season that they're not going to be looking to develop this car much through the year. So it looks like, unless they can find a lot of pace and add something to it that we haven't seen yet, it could be very tricky for the 2 rookies that are in the car. And Mazepin getting strapped in for his first go right now, and again, what awful conditions for him to make his Formula 1 debut, really, in pre-season at least. And with only 3 days, there's a day and a half per driver. We've already had Bottas losing pretty much half a day in the Mercedes. He's got 1 day left before he goes into the season. This is unprecedented times when all the running is so limited. You can't afford to be off track for too long. But for the rookies as well, it's never been tougher to get the mileage in.
Looking down into the McLaren garage, McLaren fastest earlier on a 132.2, set by Daniel Ricciardo on the C2 compound. That's one of the hard compounds. He did 45 laps on his way to that time. 74 laps set by Pierre Gasly with his fastest time on the C3 tyre, second fastest. And as we have a little bit of a lull in the action, we're going to have a look at the venue, Bahrain International, where plenty of events have taken place. And as we covered earlier on, we've had a huge amount of racing around here with different configurations. It's the traditional circuit. Jolyon, from your point of view, is this a track you enjoyed or a track that was to be just to get through the weekend?
I like it. It's a nice track. I have to say, before I turned the wheel here, I always thought it was the race was in the daylight. Yeah. We didn't have good races in Bahrain when it first came on the calendar, or not such good races as we're used to now. but I drove it for the first time, and the undulations that there are on the track are way more than the cameras pick up. Sweeping down the hill into turn 8, you've got really difficult braking zones. Oh my word, look at the track conditions.
Sweeping.
Ocon's going to be sweeping the track. Now look, that's just sand coming off the Alpine.
That's
wow.
Crazy. I've never seen the spray effect without spray before. That's bizarre.
So what are you learning in this? This is the problem. 3 days of testing, and Ocon is driving around on top of sand. It's just such a layer of sand between the tyres and the asphalt. The grip level is going to be horrendous. Just getting some mileage under the components, basically, right now, because you can't lean on the car too hard on this. The grip level's so bad, you can't get a read of the balance. Where do you go from here? And unless more cars go out and they can try and tidy up the racing line again, this is just really, really tricky.
Riding on board with the Alpine, and Esteban Ocon has decided that that's a... I wonder if he'll peel back in, having sampled the conditions.
Looks great, the Alpine.
Yeah.
I love it. They've taken inspiration from Renault into Alpine from my old helmet design. There was, there was a guy that used to make mock-ups of the cars in the livery of the driver's helmets, and he made one in my helmet, and I think it looks exactly the same as this Alpine that's there at the moment. The blue, white and red, the tricolor, is great. It's very distinctive.
Yeah, great redesign for that team that take their branding very seriously. They've got a livery team there that have introduced a new era for that team. We played earlier on the journey from Tolman all the way to Alpine and the various different guises through the years. Benetton, Lotus and Renault a couple of times in there. They've got their two-time world champion back in the team in Fernando Alonso, but they made progress last year. They're looking to continue that, but they've had a big sweeping management change. How much is that going to affect things? How much is that going to interrupt the momentum, do you think? Or is that not really going to make the difference at a race-by-race level?
I don't think it'll make a big difference in the short term. I mean, Cyril Abiteboul, who led the team from when it became Renault, and I was driving for them in 2016, left over the winter, and it's obviously gone into a new management now and a new name of Alpine, but the direction will be very much the same from where they have been. And they've obviously got a new old driver coming back in, Fernando Alonso, who, if you are having a new management change, having an experienced head like Fernando Alonso in the car alongside Esteban Ocon, who's still lesser experienced, even though he's done a few years now, is a very good help. And speaking to some of the team yesterday, they're very, very positive about the new management, where they're going, the direction, obviously the complete rebranding of the team. It's not like they're starting from scratch. They're taking on from where Renault left off with a new name and a new management, but all the processes have been in place, and it's just a steady turn of the ship, really, from where Renault took over in 2016. The progress probably wasn't there as much as everyone was hoping. Really from 2017 through to last year. Obviously Ricciardo did a great job for the team last year, getting some podiums. Esteban Ocon had a podium here as well, but I think they were hoping for a bit more. Yeah, they're still hoping for more, and of course next year is the big chance for so many of these teams with the new regulations, but there's definitely a lot of hope there at Alpine.
It'll be fascinating to see if the new regulations do what they intend. Of course, someone's going to lose out. That's always the way it is. But will it close up the field? Of course, in an alternate reality, we'll be looking at that new version of Formula One right about now. But all of that delayed. There are regulation changes, though, into this season. And the drivers, with the track conditions, but with less downforce, fighting the cars early on with a green racetrack. We had a little bit of rubber laid down by the Formula 2 test, which is 3 days of running earlier in the week. As we have a look at pretty diabolical track conditions right now for Nikita Mazepin, 5th place finisher in the Formula 2 Championship last year, had an opportunity, came into this final 2 rounds of the season, both held here at the traditional circuit and the outer loop, was mathematically in contention and scored a podium, was 2nd place in the 2nd race of the weekend. Held around here, so it's a track he knows well. It's a track he's been on the podium for in Formula 2, and he's getting his, well, not quite his first mileage, because he was driving the car when they fired it up for the very first time in 2021. Yesterday for their one of 2 allotted filming days, as we return once again to Esteban Ocon, who continues to dutifully clean up that track right now. Only 2 cars out on the racetrack, Mazepin and Ocon, as he starts another lap.
Yeah, so still going. Ocon and Mazepin as well has started another lap. He's now got 3 laps under his belt officially in this car, rather than the filming day they had yesterday to shake down the car. And here goes Ocon into turn 4. I mean, he's lapping right now 7.5 seconds off what he managed earlier on. 2.5 seconds down on Ricciardo's first sector. This is just about getting mileage under his belt, and still as he turns into that right-hander, just moving left to open up the corner, you can still see the dust coming off. The more the guys go out there, he needs 8 more cars out there really to help clean this track up as quickly as possible, and it will get back towards a usable state. But it's still important mileage. The Ferrari broke down earlier on. We've had problems with the gearbox of the Mercedes, the Haas as well with Mick Schumacher. You got to try out the components. You got to test them. If you don't run, then you got to find these problems out in a couple of weeks when it really counts. So it is important that they get some mileage in, even if it's kind of useless for finding the balance, for learning about the performance of the car. You've got to find the reliability test.
Yeah, earlier on in the morning session, we've seen a lot of it, but let's just cover everything that happened in the first 4 hours. Max Verstappen had a spin at turn 2. Valtteri Bottas had a gearbox problem that Jodin mentioned. It meant that he could only run for 50 minutes. He is now out of the car. Lewis Hamilton now in the Mercedes. And then Sebastian Vettel had a minor issue. That meant that he stopped his Aston at the end of the pit lane, but it wasn't a big problem. Didn't bring out a red flag. And then the Haas gearbox cost Mick Schumacher, who in the end was only, he had that problem after 7 laps and was only able to add another 8 to his tally. And then Charles Leclerc stopped with 10 minutes of the session to go at turn 4. And it was low grip conditions before the sandstorm. As we have a look at Sergio Perez running tomorrow, in getting used to seeing him in Red Bull colours, after driving his heart out in the second half of the season, was driving for his career. And not only does he stay in Formula 1, but he gets an opportunity at a race-winning team, which he would have thought he was getting when he moved to McLaren all those years ago, but you would expect, given the relative few changes from last year to this year, he will get this year with the Red Bull team.
Yeah, be a brave man to say that Max Verstappen can't fight for a race win, and if Verstappen can, then the theory is that Perez can as well. It's such a rare situation where a driver is fighting for a drive, and well, lost his drive in his pretty good team, Racing Point last year, now Aston Martin, but not a race-winning potential until he won the race in those circumstances in Sakir. But not only is he's either off the grid, or he's in a race-winning car for the year after, and he hit the jackpot really in the race-winning car. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Perez can do. I think it was the only decision that Red Bull could make by the end of the year, really. Alex Albon just not quite able to develop in the way that Red Bull were hoping from a young driver, and really in a similar, almost exactly the same fashion as Pierre Gasly. Yeah, Perez is more mature, more experienced. He's got some great results. And he's got a great chance.
Mandated by the regulations, so the team's immediately trying to recover that downforce. The rough estimation is about half a second a lap. That is going to cost everyone in the field, and by the end of the year, they expect to have recovered all of it, but the slightly tapered floor is probably the most visible change to the car for 2021. Of course, it's the first year as well that they are dealing with the cost cap, $147 million to spend. That will come down in future years as well. So an even playing field with the new generation car being brought in, but also with the cost cap as well.
And we've seen some really interesting concepts already of teams trying to deal with that area of the floor being drawn back. You've got the Mercedes contoured floor, which looks fascinating. They tried to hold it back as long as possible, then sent Bottas out for just 1 lap earlier on, and finally we got a proper sight of it, and it's it's maybe this year's innovative design from Mercedes, copied or done in tandem with Aston Martin, who have opted for a similar waviness of the floor just before that cutback area, and I haven't seen anyone else with that on. So interesting from that point of view. There's other differences in bargeboard areas, or that area just behind as well. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. The performance gauge right now is just nil. We really don't know where anyone's at. There's the rule changes are not huge, but they're significant enough that if someone can drag back a lot of that downforce very quickly, they can make a bit of a jump up the order. So that's the big one for the aerodynamicists over the winter to see what they can do. And it's Mercedes that have gone with that contoured floor option, which we're yet to see in anger yet, because Valtteri Bottas just did 6 laps earlier on, and now we're waiting for Lewis Hamilton to get in the car.
Still no sign of the world champion right now, as we can see Sergio Perez, Max Verstappen and Christian Horner having a conversation in lieu of Max being out on the track at the moment. One of so many different changes. Only 3 teams keeping the same driver lineup into 2021. But can Sergio Perez play the role of, if he's not able to be ahead of Max Verstappen, is he able to be in the wheel tracks of Max Verstappen? Because that just gives them so many more strategic options if he can, as Nikita Mazepin emerges through the dust once more, and he's on to his 8th lap.
He's pressing on, isn't he? He's pressing on. Big bit of wheel spin coming out of the final corner. Dusty and sandy as anything. He's got really far out wide. The same place as Alex Albon had that crash in was it FP2 last year in Bahrain, one of the practice sessions anyway. Jack Aitken spattered off there in the race, which was the big talking point that
completely changed everything.
Cost George Russell his potential first win.
Yeah, his former teammate.
Yeah.
George Russell beat him to the GP3 title many years ago, and he waited a while to get revenge, but of course Jack's not like that at all. That's not what happened. But it had a huge impact on his former teammate's race, and not only did they need a safety car, but the puncture that dropped him out of contention when he was trying to hunt down Perez likely came from that debris as well. So not meant to be that day, but a drive that was very useful indeed for George Russell's career. As we check in with some slow-mos of the Haas, Nikita Mazepin continuing to press on.
He's 9/10 away from what Mick did earlier on. 7 laps under his belt, Mazepin, and in that area, that is a place you can hit the wall, obviously, but he's straight on pressing on with it, and spares are always very, very limited, particularly day one of a test. You would hate for a rookie driver to drop it, but again, 3 days. You can't be cautious too early. The conditions are atrocious. But you've got no choice but to get on with it, try and get up to speed as quickly as you can. And yeah, for the rookies, bit of pressure not to drop it always in testing. But you got to fight that balance, and Mazepin just about getting away with it that time, even if you could just hear the wheel spin from the limited grip of the rear axle.
Now, how rough is this for the rookies, from your point of view, Jodin? Having been in this situation, having gone through all of this, only 3 days of testing, and Yuki Tsunoda's been privately testing an old car, running at tracks in Italy, but they do not have a huge amount of track time. Practice time is condensed as well on a Friday. Difficult task?
Well, in theory, it's never been harder. The practice time is a good point. 1 hour and a half we're so used to for FP1 and FP2, just 1 hour for this year. The pre-season testing, it used to be, there was 3 tests when I was reserve driver at Lotus. There were 3 4-day tests, and it seems like so much running now. We went to Jerez, then 2 tests in Barcelona, and everyone was very dialed in by the time the season came. But now there's 1 test of 3 days. It's really, really limited, and for the experienced guys, it doesn't really make a big difference. The changes to the cars are subtle for this year. They will feel largely the same as what the drivers felt for at the same venue, in fact, just 4 or 5 months ago. And for those drivers that haven't changed teams, it's just dialing in and getting back on with it. And I think that's why we saw the likes of Pierre Gasly looking very comfortable in the AlphaTauri, straight back in and looking good. But for the rookies, very difficult. For the guys changing teams as well, they've got to build up that relationship.
Yeah.
It's new engineers, new mechanics, new people you're speaking to on the radio, new methods of debriefing. There's a lot of changes, and even for some of them, they've not been able to get in the simulator because of COVID regulations and quarantine rules and the rest of it. It's a very difficult time for drivers changing teams. If you're very experienced, you've got so much to fall back on that you'll obviously be in a much better situation. But for the rookies, yeah, very, very tricky.
Okay, we're looking at Nikita Mazepin on track. We can find out a bit more about the Russian driver in this look at one of Formula One's 3 rookies this year.
Nikita Mazepin made his single-seater debut in 2014, picking up a podium in the MRF Challenge Formula 2000 series. He went on to compete in numerous national and international competitions, with varying success. But his breakthrough came in the 2018 GP3 season, when he finished second overall. His progression towards Formula One continued when he tested for both Force India in 2018 and Mercedes in 2019. A step up to the FIA Formula 2 Championship followed, finishing 18th in the 2019 season. In 2020, he moved to the High-Tech Grand Prix team, taking 2 wins and 6 podiums, finishing 5th in the championship. Haas announced before the end of that campaign that Mazepin would compete with them in the 2021 Formula One season.
A whistle-stop look at Nikita Mazepin's career with Rosanna Tennant narrating that for us. Haas with 2 rookies in the car. That is not usually a route that they would go down, but they felt that that was the right choice for this year. They've been pretty open with the way that they said, listen, we had budget issues, so it'll be interesting to see whether it's the right choice. What do you reckon?
Well, I mean, it's so difficult for these guys. The whole team is clearly in a tricky position. This is the same Haas team that, for the first years of its existence, was saying we don't want rookie drivers, we want guys with experience. They signed Romain Grosjean, they had Esteban Gutierrez, who at least had some F1 experience before. Then they signed Kevin Magnussen alongside Grosjean in 2017, and that pairing, people forget that's a really good pairing.
Yeah.
Both guys that have stood on a Formula One podium, both, I would say, really solid upper midfield drivers. Yet they were fighting at the back last year, and because they're fighting at the back, you forget how good those guys can be in the right machinery. Now, a car that looks to be underdeveloped has 2 rookies at the wheel. They're facing an uphill battle already, Haas, and the signs coming out of the team, there's not a lot of positivity. I mean, Mick Schumacher yesterday basically said we need to fight for everything we can get this year. We know it's going to be really tough, and for a rookie, it's a really tricky position to be in. Is it the right decision for Haas? There's better drivers on the market, I would say. Look, Nico Hülkenberg's without a drive. They've signed the Formula 2 champion. Absolutely fair dues. The guy that's 5th in Formula 2, obviously, there's the potential to take one of those higher Formula 2 drivers as well. But we know Mazepin brings some financial backing to the team. And maybe they needed, they clearly did. They've said they needed that backing. So it's difficult to argue really with that. But they're certainly in for a tough time. And for the rookies, they've got themselves to compare to. It's... If you're Mick and you're coming in alongside Grosjean and Magnussen, you've got a really good reference point. You can see the data, you can learn a lot quickly. And the same for Nikita as well. If you've got one rookie like Yuki Tsunoda this year, perfect situation. Pierre Gasly's been driving really well in the AlphaTauri, and you've got a great benchmark alongside you. As a rookie, you're not going to come in and be the chiseled performer straight away. You're going to need to find the working ways, really. And then the performance and everything from the telemetry data as well that you get from your teammate. These guys, they're fighting together, and it's going to be tricky not to have that benchmark straight away. It can be done, because we've seen it with Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz. Both joined Toro Rosso in 2015, and were a great pairing, and it worked really nicely. So it can be done, but it's the unconventional way. It's never been done before by Haas, who have previously said that they're relying on experience to lead the team. So I fear a little bit for the team, I have to say.
Maybe the one thing that they are equipped, having come out of Formula 2, where every once in a while, as you well know, having won the championship when it was known as GP2, John. You get a crazy race every once in a while. And if there's likely, from what we know right now, and with the disclaimer that this is only the second session on day one, that they're going to be towards the back. If a crazy race turns up, maybe that F2 experience of suddenly moving forward after a late safety car restart could equip them. But yeah, I think it's going to be. I think it'd be very, very tough at the start for both of them, especially with two tracks that the rest of the field have gone to coming up in the first three races. But they are experienced around here, so good opportunity to get off to a flying start. Probably best here. Talking of the rookies, here's the third one. Yuki Tsunoda was absolutely rapid around here in Formula 2 a few months ago, and he's on track in an AlphaTauri. The condition's not improving.
You wouldn't know it's an AlphaTauri from that shot without seeing the one before, would you?
Looking hopefully at the screen for conditions improving. Very, very gusty, as you can see from the graphic there. 23 kilometres.
Looks like it's getting worse again. I think we've got. Well, Mazepin's just pitted. Ocon pitted a while ago now, so it is only Tsunoda out on track for his first taste of the AlphaTauri. He's already driven it in Imola for the filming day shakedown that AlphaTauri had, but first official session for Tsunoda. He's going to come through the final corner and maybe dive into the pits or carry straight on with a first flying lap. Let's see what he does. He's going to carry on straight on for a flying lap.
Good on Yuki. He wouldn't leave us hanging.
Obviously comfortable in the car straight away, and here he goes. Oh, visibility is just horrendous as well.
Every single time they pick the braking point, you're just expecting them to sail on by at turn one.
You can see him working at the wheel as well, even from that outboard shot on the braking zone. He's just catching small slides from the rear, turning it in, still no rear grip. It's the rear grip that suffers so much in these conditions. Traction becomes awful, and again, you're learning very little. But for Tsunoda, it's still driving the car, getting used to the systems. Remember, he's got to learn procedures, everything else that you don't get in Formula 2. You've got to learn working with your engineer, running through testing procedures, the switches, everything on the steering wheel. It's very complex in Formula 1. So all this is valuable learning for the rookies.
That is the main thing that he picked out of his first test in a Formula 1 car. There is just so much more operationally to learn with the systems. In the past, Formula 2 was limited to about 6 buttons on the steering wheel. They have more things that they can change today, but nowhere near the region of what he now has at his disposal. And if you ever see, and the night race element here gives us a great look at the steering wheels when we go on board, and you can see the constant alterations that are required to get the tenths that matter when it is so very tight in the midfield.
And that's where the more experienced drivers have an inherent advantage, just by being able to dial in that much more. They know the inner workings of the car much better. The rookies will have to get up to speed with this as quick as possible, because in changing the settings of the car effectively, you've got so many tools that you're because in changing the settings of the car effectively, you've got so many tools at your disposal. You can change the diff settings, which are very powerful to balance the car, unlocking or locking the diff, depending if you want more turn in, more understeer, and through various phases of the corner, the entry, the mid-corner, the exit, and simply high-speed corners. They can identify, the engineers can limit you to, so you're just changing one particular phase, and it's an incredible tool that you can use for the cockpit. You've also got various brake parameters as well, the brake shape, the brake balance, which the drivers will all be used to, but then the engine braking as well. All of this you've got to get up to speed with, and again, when testing mileage is so limited, the simulator will become more important to get up to speed with these changes. And then, yeah, you've got to try and implement them. It's one thing, it looks so cool when you see a driver that's changing the dials every corner, and you're like, wow, that is impressive. How's he doing that and keeping on the absolute limit? And it is impressive, and it is technically the fastest way to get around the lap. But if you've got to take up some element of mental capacity to do that. And if you don't change the setting back at the right time, you're going to be in for a really nasty surprise when you get to the next corner and you've suddenly got a really forward brake balance, or you've got way too much oversteer or something. And there's basically you can lose out on driving by trying to be too clever. So there's a balance to be had, but definitely that's the area where the experienced drivers have a bit of an early advantage.
Great to get Jolyon Palmer's insight. He will be with us for all 3 days later on, returning to the comm box. We'll have Karun, we'll have Martin, and we'll have Crofty as well. We're hoping to be joined by Sam Collins and Will Buxton before our shift ends. We're just tracking Max Verstappen right now. He's pushing right now. And he was not too far away from the car. You can see no improvements from Sector 1 or Sector 2. And he comes around the 15th and final corner, trying not to get too much on the curbs. And, well, it looks pretty murky from where we are in the commentary box. But Martin Brundle, what does it look like down there at turn number 1, where Max Verstappen is coming your way?
Thanks, Alex. Indeed, I am. And what's staggering is there's so much dust. Look at the plume of dust and sand as they go up the hill. It really stands out as you're close to the corners, and there's just nothing like the usual energy level I'm used to here when I come out during the Grand Prix, because normally they're hustling on the brakes, brake discs glowing red with energy, rotate the car, and as they come through turn 2, they're chasing the throttle like crazily, absolutely full throttle, and up the hill. Turn 3 turns into nothing at that point. Today, they're having to be really edgy on the curb, and then Verstappen short-shifted to dull the torque down, and then up the hill. Tsunoda, very neat and tidy, it must be said. He's hit the apex every single time into turn 1, but listen to this. Completely off the throttle in turn 2, and then very gingerly putting it on, almost as if it's raining out there. That's the kind of grip it looks like they're experiencing now. Down here underneath the trees, sort of right beside the track, you wouldn't really actually know, unless you could see the trees, that it was that windy. So I can see how the wind is coming and going, depending on gaps in the barriers, elevation of the track. It's incredibly still here on the outside of turn 2, and you can see the visibility into the distance. Everything sort of is taking on a bit of almost like a light fog everywhere. But I must say, I would be extremely nervous of this track surface at the moment. It's a great shame, because it feels so right for us to be doing the pre-season test. The Alpha never got, look at the dust behind him, never got anywhere near the apex of the corner. And you can sense they, just like in the rain, they daren't put the throttle fully down until they're established in a straight line, heading up to turn 4 as Verstappen hustles the back of the Red Bull through there one more time. I'm going to head down to the inside of turn 8. Back to you, Alex.
Thank you, Martin. It looks very, very dusty in there. Great point about the throttle pickup. Was a great illustration of how it's basically wet conditions out there.
And that's the sketchy bit. That's where you can have, it's the easiest way to crash. We saw Max Verstappen have the spin there earlier on in that exact corner where, well, just the exit where Martin was watching. And it's always tricky. We've seen a few incidents in the past, and many last year actually, of drivers just losing it on power when the track's rubbered in and the conditions are good and they're on soft tyres. Now we're yet to see any soft tyres. The conditions are awful. They've got to be super, super careful. The Alpha that never got near the apex was Antonio Giovinazzi, who's having his first go in the car right now. And he literally just came out of the pits straight into the back of Martin's shot there and did a nice wet line for us and kicked up a load of dust there. But they have to get on with it. They have to get on with doing some running, because there's still things that the teams can learn. But if this was an FP1, FP2, FP3, this would be a stone cold washout. There's no point. They're not learning anything from performance point of view, and they are risking hitting a wall in the car, which would be very bad news, obviously, with limited spares. But they've got to get on with it.
You heard the car bottoming out under the bumps at turn 1, very bumpy at turn 1.
He was a bit nicer to the apex that time, Giovinazzi. He probably had a bit of a shock when he came out of the pits and hit the brakes, and just, wow, there's such a small amount of grip. He's very early on the brakes as well. Again, gingerly picking up the throttle, having a short shift through turn 7. This is his first flying lap still. He's got some excuses. Doesn't need to be pushing on right now. Just trying to hear a little bit of wheel spin, but he was just still gingerly getting on the throttle coming out of turn 8. Tricky conditions.
Taking it down the back straight to turn 11. Was under a bit of pressure, Antonio Giovinazzi, to keep this seat. Ferrari have many talented drivers in their academy. Robert Schwartzman is one of them, we've already seen, and he is going to be running again in Formula 2. Callum Ilott, the British driver, was another option. They decided to place him elsewhere, and another season with Alfa as they retain their driver lineup. And Kimi Raikkonen running this morning. The car looked a handful then, and he is having a bit of a sore by modern standards of Formula 1 at the steering wheel, but just logging laps right now, because they're not really left with any other option.
Yeah, 138.5 for Giovinazzi, which is 5 seconds away from that which Kimi Raikkonen did earlier on. Still early days for him, his first run, and obviously in very poor conditions, but he was fighting the car through turn 11, the long, fast left-hander in the middle of the circuit. Then again through turn 12, there was a little correction on the wheel. Now that should be absolutely flat out easy peasy in these cars coming up the hill, but the conditions again not allowing it, and it's the fastest corner on the circuit. So difficult times. The rear grip again, such a low level of rear grip, and Giovinazzi fighting the car through the final corner. Traction's always very difficult, but getting another lap in, finding some more mileage, getting himself dialed back in, although Giovinazzi is one of those that is in the same car, on the same track as he was 5 months ago, or the same team in a slightly modified car, but things should be fairly familiar for him at least.
Just a reminder of conditions with that nearly 22 kilometers an hour speed. Air temperature at 34 degrees, track temperature down to 37. It is very nearly 20 minutes to 4 local time here. You are very welcome wherever in the world you are watching the opening day of Formula 1 in 2021. And we are waiting for, hopefully, it will probably clear up for everyone in the, for our friends covering the final half of the session, but for the moment we've got Sergio Perez on a headset on the gantry and trying to input as much as he can, trying to learn as much as he can, but pretty much just I imagine staying quiet and just trying to learn what he can. Here's an example of how borderline ridiculous it is out there on track.
Crazy. I had a GP2 test once in Abu Dhabi, and it was like this. You had to go out on wets. The grip level was so bad, people were going out on wets.
We had a question into hashtag F1 testing. Why are they not out there on inters?
I don't think the conditions are actually so shocking that the slicks aren't making good contact with the tarmac. But the lap times, the car is clearly quite drivable, albeit a long way away from optimal grip. And the slicks would then give you the most contact patch with the surface and the most grip. But yeah, it can be in the Middle East, in these desert races, you just get this sand that comes across. And yeah, back then in GP2, there was no tyre blankets, of course. You had to try and get some heat into the tyres as well in that series, which Formula 1 has the benefit of the tyre blankets. And it was a write-off of an entire day. This is the sort of day where Sergio Perez must have got the schedule and thought, okay, Max does day 1, I'll do day 2, and it's worked out nicely, so long as tomorrow is an effective day. Obviously, the sand has got to blow off again, which it's going to take a long time to clean up, even with the drivers out there. So even if tomorrow is a lovely day, there's going to be still such a layer of sand at the moment. But, well, we'll see when this wind blows over and we get the sun back out and back to Bahrain that we know and love.
Indeed. The Alfa was off the racing line there, and it's only getting worse offline. It's okay on the racing line right now, but offline it is ridiculously dusty. Max Verstappen continuing on his way, and the time earlier on was a 1:32.2 that he was posting as he emerges once again onto the pit straight.
Look, he's got a yellow nose tip on the Red Bull. We can still make him out. Still getting on with it though, Verstappen. 68 laps for the day. And who's the big loser so far from the day? It has to be Mercedes, doesn't it?
Yes.
6 laps across the entire day so far with the gearbox issue for Bottas. And so far, no sign of Lewis Hamilton in the car either. So Mercedes, reigning champions year on year, have had, at least if there is a problem with the Mercedes right now, which is the reason that Hamilton's not going out, at least this is
we
not...
saw the screens up, and you're only allowed the screens up if there is a problem that requires the car to be worked on.
So there seems to be something else going on, but at least no one else is gaining really valuable data and performance analysis on their cars. But track time, they missed out this morning, and that was when the running was better today, at least, even if very difficult still.
Sven Ocon back out there with his 4th fastest time from earlier on, some way off the times, and last time around he did a 1:33.2. This morning he did a 1:32.9.
So he's done a fast lap just now, which is actually matched his time from earlier. So actually the track conditions must be getting somewhere closer, and you can see online it's looking a lot better. There's the Mercedes, covers are down. Where is Lewis? Can't see him in the car, and he's not in shot, but there's not a frantic amount of work going on that car, so maybe we're going to see the Mercedes pop out with Lewis Hamilton in it anytime soon. And everyone else can see that Ocon's just done a sensible enough lap time as well. You know that the conditions are getting better. He's just done a fast lap followed by a very slow lap, whether that's to try and recover some temperature from the tyres. The tyres will be getting very hot from just one lap. Already in Bahrain, it's a very abrasive surface. Plus now you've got the heat, which is there and not always there when you get the racing under the lights here. And then you've got the layer of sand, which is just making the car slide around like Vilio. But Tsunoda's getting out of the way just from Verstappen there. But yeah, so the rear surface temperature is going to be soaring. So that's maybe why Ocon's done a slow lap after his fast lap, and he's still on that slow lap, actually doing a very slow one. Or maybe he's recharging the battery and doing it more like a fast, slow, fast, conventional run. Let's see what he does next time.
Yuki Tsunoda getting out of the way nicely in the background. 9th in the Formula 3 Championship of 2019. Took a long time into the season for him to get on the podium. Managed that in Belgium deep into the season, and then won his 14th race into the championship. Completely different driver, having learnt so much with that Pirelli rubber. And as you see, Charles Leclerc looking on. I'm not sure he's doing the pit board, but he's next to the pit board numbers and letters down there, just having a look at how daft conditions are on track as Verstappen goes by to complete another lap. And Nikita Mazepin with the DRS open appears to be confident enough to push right now. It is a personal best in sector 1, but from this rookie to another one, Yuki Tsunoda said his most pleasing moment was when he took pole position in Austria. Not the wins, not any of that, not finishing 3rd in the championship. He said what meant a lot was coming to Europe and being faster than everyone else in just a very early stage in his career, and taking pole ahead of so many highly rated drivers that we had in the championship last year for Formula 2 gave him a lot of satisfaction. He built that momentum and built that momentum and built it all the way to Formula 1. A possible seat became a probable seat, and then he converted it by getting the championship result he needed. That was not confirmed when he last came to Bahrain to finish the last 2 rounds of the championship. And Nikita Mazepin is continuing for another lap. And Mazepin 9th fastest at the moment, 1:35.4.
Qualifying was a real strength for Tsunoda last year, wasn't it? It was qualifying and very strong feature races, mixed with some trouble in the sprint races, just dropped him back off the top 2 in the championship. I'm excited for him. He's been really under the radar over the winter because there's been a lot of chat about the 2 drivers that are at Haas. One of them is this man, Nikita Mazepin, who's made some headlines over the winter. And obviously the son of one of the great drivers of all time, Michael Schumacher. You know, Yuki Tsunoda, this young Japanese driver that's come back in, it's highly promising, and he was very, very quick in Formula 2, and pace is 99% even of the job in Formula 1. If he can transfer that pace that he had as a rookie in Formula 2 into being a rookie in Formula 1, and he can give Pierre Gasly a hard time, but Gasly's shown over the last year and a half, he's got his feet under the table so well at AlphaTauri. He just gels with that team, and he's not going to be an easy teammate for Yuki to compare against.
Right, let's throw it down trackside once again with Martin.
Yeah, as Verstappen climbs the hill, they're struggling. Everybody's struggling for traction here out of this hairpin turn 8. The teams all owe it to each other to get, if they can, get their car out on track, because you can see, I heard what Jolien was talking about there, maybe there's a little bit more grip coming, but only absolutely on the racing line. So if you move over, I saw Tsunoda move over to let a car through. Massive sand everywhere. He must have filled the surface of his molten slick tyres immediately with sand. I can't imagine they were too much good after that. I love this spot at turn 8. You can see the direction change, heavy braking, rotate the car through the apex. He hit the apex curb a little bit, so you could see that the car jumped a bit. He had to hesitate to get on the throttle. It's all those tiny little moments that affect your lap. Maybe put a little bit more energy through your tyres. So just a tiny bit clumsy there for Tsunoda, nothing more than that. As we watch Alonso coming down the hill. Yeah, decent traction on that. But once again, just so cautiously, you can hear them sort of squeezing the throttle pedal as if there's an egg underneath it that they don't want to break. We've got Verstappen coming through one more time, and there's the dust if you go offline. Let's watch this. Yeah, that's beginning to come together, there's no doubt about it. And flying the car along like they are now with the high rake of the Red Bull and the AlphaTauri. It's nice and soft as well in vertical stiffness, will be good over the curbs. And as Adrian Newey just pointed out to me not 15 minutes ago, you know, the amount of downforce they probably lost for 2021 is nothing like putting the Monza wing on versus a high downforce wing in Monaco, for example. So he's saying they can manage this. But so that's turn 8 for you. Dust is getting in my